Merry Christmas and welcome back to Homeschool Journey 101. Today we're talking about making the most of Christmas. So we're having this video is full of centers and activities that will make your you and your toddler together bonding even closer with these wonderful activities that will help you find the joy of Christmas, but also, have a great time. There also have a lot of brain development, brain growth things mixed in, but the emphasis is on having this great time, this thing, building this feeling that Christmas is the most wonderful thing ever. And just a little story, a toddler in my life growing up in my family, it really stuck in my head because every time he looked at the tree or he touched the tree, we must have all been saying no, no to him because he started to call the Christmas tree no, no. And when he would see the presents, he would call them no, no. And, everything was a no, no, that pretty soon we were joking around that it was a no, no bus. Well, that toddler grew up to hate Christmas. He doesn't celebrate it in any way. And so I think that, that's something that I think when I went and started having children, I just thought I just do not want this to be no bus. I want this to start to be the beginning of feeling of this is a season where we have such joy as a family and we're celebrating the big thing, right? We're celebrating Jesus' birth. So also not to have it just be like one day, but to have, these joyous things happening for a whole season. So here we go. So it's the season of light, Christmas, obviously. And so one thing, of course, that toddlers are going to love is just looking at the tree and seeing the lights. And so one thing I was just going to start off with is helping a child to understand how lights work can make that the whole experience even more exciting. So you can see here that I have just these lights that you press and they turn off and on. You can see that they're battery operated because electricity is that's a little harder to grasp, right, than you need the battery, right? And you can see he's here having just a lovely time learning to turn them on and off, on and off, on and off at the Christmas tree. And at one point he's, obviously just that is a very fun thing, but he is turning it over to look, okay, there's the batteries, right? I remember when, she put those batteries in there, so it works. So he's starting to figure out okay, how does this go? This, this magical thing. Oh, well, actually, batteries are what makes it happen. And so he's got that down. He's loving that. That's wonderful. And then I'm going to the next thing. And so you can see in this red, it's our water table taken off, that there's one set of the string lights, which are this very lightweight, very thin lights. And the other side is the exact same set, but I have both of the sort of controls open. And so he can see that one side has batteries and those are on, and the other side does not have batteries and they're not working, right? And then he can see I'm shutting the battery pack and locking it, and he's got the little control button. And so it's a great thing to have when you're that age, right? Just notice, okay, hey, if I press this, it's going to start twinkling, it's going to start flashing. Very intriguing, something that lots of toddlers will want to do over and over and over again. But you'll also see that I have this other video here where he's starting to look at that battery pack and thinking, hey, why don't these other ones go? What's happening? And so when he actually points it to me like, hey, where's the batteries? What's happening? Then I'm going to put that second set of batteries on, turn it on, and yay, they all work. The other thing that is very fun is to feel like, of course, at this age, that you were part of the decorating, right? And it's very hard for a toddler to be part of a lot of decorating unless it's basically being done for him. But this is an easy thing to take those string lights and they can actually decorate a swag. This is a swag of evergreens and pine cones for above the fireplace. And it's very forgiving. Those little thin lights, you can't even see them. Any way you put them on there, it's going to be marvelous. And so, of course, he's just swelling with pride when he sees that the way he did it exactly is the way it's going to be left on the fireplace. He did that. It happened. What can be better at that age? And, you feel like confidence, but you also just, feel the joy of it, right? The joy of it. And he even has such a fun time just playing with the lights for a while. Of course, you have to watch him really carefully. In this one video, you can see he's just trying to dress himself up in the light, right? This is so exciting to have light everywhere. So, you could stop there and that would be great, or you could go the next step farther. And of course, today, solar power has become such a big thing. And also it can be just a great way to start thinking about the sun and what can happen. You know, before you actually did this, you could, or after, one or the other, you could point out solar power panels on people's houses. But you can see that this little light up flowers thing has its own solar power. So it has a stake in the ground. Then an older toddler might even be able to put the stakes in the ground. And then of course you don't have any wires or anything, but you can point out that it's the little electrical panel that will happen. And you can see here in the picture, they are little different colors of light. If you watch Korean dramas from South Korea, you've seen these kind of light up flowers everywhere. But they're very fun for toddlers too. And the multicolor thing is, a nice way to just have a little piece of how does solar power maybe work. So then the other thing is, if you want to also show them electricity, and of course, that you've got probably all those lights on the tree, and you may have one of those foot pedals that you can push, and the lights will come off and on. But that's probably not something that they can do on their own. It's probably something that you have to really watch them carefully with. And so one thing that might be really a nice time to do is if you find a sort of night light that they can check out. And I think these night lights that have, like a little lava lamp in them, or this has those bubbling bubbler things that you see sometimes in those older Christmas decorations, or, retro remakes of the Christmas decorations. And so you can see that I just plugged this into the wall, and he loves to just sit there and watch it, right? You can see him like up close and watching it. And also because there's no cord like there is to the lamp, it's very clear, like you plug this in and it happens, right? This connects with the thing. Because I don't want him to be, constantly looking at electrical light sockets. If I'm not, pretty close, I take that out. But it's very fun to do. And that does have an off and on switch too. But it's just a different fun way to have light happening. And when you have all his little light things going and some Christmas music in the background, he's getting that feeling of Christmas joy. This is right. This isn't just the same thing that's happening all the time, right? This is a new thing. So, candles are another lightweight, a way to have that feeling of Christmas, and of course, in so many ways connected with the history of Christmas in a lot of ways. But this is kind of a fun thing to do. These are just plumber's candles, like we got them at our local hardware store. And of course, I put them in jars, and you can see that they melt pretty quickly. So because I don't want them to get too hot that it might hurt to touch the glass, you can let it burn for a little while. You might want to blow it out, come back to it, burn it a little bit more. And the thing is, it will completely change shape. And so this is a fun way to start learning that idea that things change, right? Things can change shapes, but they're still the same thing. And so these melt down into actual completely different shape. And so that's really, a fun way to look at light and to look at things changing. And when it's cooled down, you can see here, he's done this more than once, that he's patting the bottom and shaking it because he knows it will pop out. It will be a completely different shaped candle. So this is very fun sort of, thing to start doing. You can also use these as a kind of, you can make these candles into different kind of gifts that they can give people. I'm always wanting to have something that they feel like they've done themselves. So partway when the candle is melting, you could add glitter, and you can see him here adding glitter. If you add too much glitter, I know from experience that they don't come out of that glass jar nearly so easily. On another one, he can add, little berries, little evergreen things. And so in the end, it's like, oh, I made a candle. And of course, you could just buy a candle kit from the store and do it really fancy. But, these plumber's candles cost 99 cents. You probably have a glass jar at home. So, just really easy way to do it if you want to. And then if you want to burn them, it's probably better if you leave them in the glass jar. But I've noticed that toddlers love to have them come out where they can touch them and look at them, at least for a while, and make a kind of nature plate sort of gift to, give to a family member when they come home. Like, look, I did this. I put a couple evergreens and there's a candle. And the thing that's pretty surprising about it is that it almost always looks great, whatever they do. You just put a candle in there and, some things. It's wonderful. And they can feel like, wow, I did this. This is a gift. A little later, you'll see actually making it into and add the wreath can be very fun too. So when they're doing this, it's very fun for them to smell the greens. They may, if you've used a candle that smells good, to smell the candle. You probably notice he's smelling this all the time. So it's just even another way to kind of bring that joy in to Christmas, with all of these different ways to play with and experience light. I love incorporating plants and evergreens into Christmas. And so you probably wouldn't be super surprised that if I can combine that with gift making, I'm going to love it. But also forcing bulbs is something that is very easy, and your toddler can do this by themselves and they will love it. That they'll love the process, but they also will love it when they give it away as a gift. And so you can see here that what we're doing is actually starting with paper whites and with amaryllis. And so to make the paper whites actually work, and this experience of growing something blooming, something new life, it fits in a lot with Christmas anyway. But really, all you need for this to happen is you need some kind of a jar or a pot that does not have a hole in the bottom. If it does, you need to put some plumber's putty in there or something. And you can use some dirt, but paper whites are very easy. So that if you just have gravel, that will work. I mean, really, that's it. It's super easy. But let's get started. So you can see here he is washing the gravel, and this is actually an important step because especially when you see that later we're going to put them in glass jars, you don't want to have it really dirty, you don't want to have stuff in there that may be able to start mold. So washing it out, and you can see he's got a strainer there, very exciting, where they use a spoon to move it around, you use a small excavator to move it around. Washing out the gravel is it's fun. It's not a thing. You might want to do it outside if you can find a way to do it, but it works inside too. So you can see that. The next step then is going to be to put the gravel into the pot. Now, you might be thinking well, why aren't you using a glass pot to start with? And the reason is, if you start with one of these clay pots that's just flat, early on when the roots start to really get going, the child is going to be able to pick it up easily. So you can see here, I just have a flat picture showing the roots. And something that you might want to consider is, you can see here in this picture, there's one with very few roots and some with no roots. You'll see why later, but I personally think it's great to have a couple that you're pretty sure aren't going to do as well as the others, to sort of have a compare and contrast thing. All right, so you can see that just the process of putting them in there is something that takes a lot of thought, and he's thinking about it carefully, taking them in and taking them out. And I actually love using bulbs more than seeds, even, for your toddler to first start to have this experience of growing things. Bulbs are bigger, they're sturdier, they can hold them, they don't drop them, and they can really look at what's happening. So once they're in those clay pots, you can see that he's looking at these carefully. He's noticing the roots. They can start growing a fair amount before you move them. And so during this time, if they want to pick them up and look at them every day, it's really probably fine. And that sort of onion skin that comes off, it's really okay if they want to play with that. I think the important thing with this is to not get worked up. Things are going to happen, right? Some of the gravel is going to fall on the floor. They may sometimes knock the thing over. And so as long as you're prepared to just take it as it comes, this is a great thing to do with your toddler. They just love it. It's just so intriguing to them. So once they've got them in there, they've got started on them actually growing, the roots are actually growing, you want to make sure that it's going to get watered enough, okay? So the paper whites are different than amaryllis in that you're going to want to make it so that the roots are always covered with water, but the bulb is dry. And there's a lot of forgiving in there. If your child pours in the water and there's a little too much, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's not like the first time you did that, I will die, I will never, it's not like that at all. But it's just that if you keep it so that the bulb is covered too often, the bulb can get too soft, it can get moldy. So you want to just make sure that for the most part, the bulb stays dry, but those roots stay wet. And so that's why you have the gravel in there, and you want to keep the water up that high. So at first, probably the most intriguing thing for your child will be the roots. And once you've transferred it over to the glass jar, which you should not let them pull them out anymore. So I just talked to the, my toddler's like, okay, you have to be gentle. Now they live in the glass jar. We can't pull them out anymore. Really, even if they do at first, you're going to be able to pop them back in. It's not the end of the world. But, you want to slowly get them on the idea that now we're just looking at them, or we can touch the glass jar. And of course, the great thing about that clear glass jar is they can see those roots growing, right? And they get very big. So, within a week, you'll probably have some very wonderful looking bulbs. And you want to find the sunniest place you have. So you may not want to leave them out all the time. Lots of us are going to pick to put them up somewhere else for part of the, most of the day. But then, every day or every other day to put them down where they're at their level and to let them look at them is so exciting for them, right? And, whether they're going to say roots, 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 trace the roots, it's all so fun for them. It's something, they're learning, they're seeing it right before their eyes. But the thing that's great about bulbs is it's so big, right? I mean, these things are happening on such a big, big scale. You probably might have to tell your child every now and then, be gentle, right? Like, don't hold on to the stack and move it back and forth. But, it's okay. It's a learning process, right? It's just, just keep talking them through it. And, what's the worst that can happen? As long as you start with several things, even if one of them, really is a disaster, it's going to be okay. And probably that won't happen. But it's just a really enjoyable thing. And so you can see in some of these videos, like, he can't even decide. He's so excited about it. He can't even decide exactly what he wants to do, what he wants to look at, how he wants to say it, have it work together. But looking at it is the joy of it, right? Like, just letting them spend some time there, looking at it, seeing how it's going to grow. One thing to think about is, if you are going to do the amaryllis, is that's going to be different. You probably want to put about a third of the pot in gravel so it can drain. It's the opposite thing. You don't want sitting water. So you want that to just be moist, but not wet all the time. And you can see from the picture here that you want something like a half to of that bulb to be sticking out, maybe more like a third that's actually sticking outside of the ground. Now, I've put gravel on the top just to kind of finish it off. That's not, you don't have to do that. So after you've had that third of gravel, then you're just putting in peat or some kind of light medium for growing. So anyway, amaryllis, less water. They still need some dirt. They need to have parted themselves in the dirt. Whereas you can see that the paper whites, it's all sitting there. Now, just one other thing to think about is why I'm using these tall, thin glasses. Part of it is so that he can move it around, right? So whether it's just a few inches at the top of the lip of the glass, or it's a tall glass, it's because those get very tall. Unfortunately, they didn't bloom before this video. I've got some buds, but not the bloom. And they start to just fall over, which is troubling, right? That is just falling over all the time. So if you just put them in something that can kind of hold those long stems, it just makes it a lot easier in that way. So one thing that I do to make this so exciting is I'm really praising my child. So when your child is watering the plant, you may want to use like little lightweight containers, or I've got like a tall, thin test tube, something that they can easily pick up that's lightweight enough that they can have a lot of control. And if you're giving them a heavier thing, it's harder for them to have that control. And again, they're probably going to spill it. And you're going to have to just be like, hey, it's okay. Because I don't think you want it to turn into a stressful thing for them. You're wanting this to be part of the joy of life, right? And so, mistakes happen. Hey, we bounce back. We learn from them. We can clean this up. It's not a problem. Because, of course, I'm going for that flexible adapter spirit. But also, it's just a lot more fun than if the adult is like super worried about if that water's spilled. You might have to show them how to do it. But this feeling that they are part of taking care of it and watering it, twice a week, helps them feel part of the thing, like, I really made this. And of course, when they grow, when they're done, you can put a bow on them, and they're lovely. They're lovely. They're just such a fun thing to give, such a fun thing to get. So I hope that you'll try it. It's just so easy to do, and so much fun to see them go. To see the crown of all of those giant flowers. Oh, it's just lovely. And it's fun for you too. It just gives you that feeling of Christmas yourself, to see it going, to see around. You're part of that. Your child had the experience of having such a great time being part of that. It's just everything as well. So another wonderful present, because the gift of giving is a big thing, right? I mean, it's so fun for most of us to give, but particularly as a toddler, when everything is being done for you, to have that power, to have that joy of you are part of the thing. Like, you made this, you took care of this plant, and now it grew. Another thing is, of course, ornaments, right? Unfortunately, so many ornaments die, as Renee probably knows. After about 10 or 15 years, things just start to crumble and disintegrate. And particularly after 20 years, I've noticed, I go back and things that my children made just don't last. And it makes me really sad. So I have really become a fan of the wooden things. And this is an example. This ornament is about, I think this one was about 17 years old. This is my son in here. It's, still painted pink. The sequins and the pom-poms that were on there are long gone, but at least you still have the ornament. And so I decided, hey, I'm going for this wood thing that lasts forever. And before we get started, I want to say, unless it's a picture, make yourself write the date of the child's name. Because I know from experience that when you're hanging up the Christmas tree and you hold up an ornament, and you're like, you guys, what have you made this? This is so great. Nobody cares. But if you can be like, look, 1989, or no, it wouldn't be 1980, like 1991, you made this. Da-da-da. It's completely different. Everyone loves it. So the first thing I'm showing you here are just the different steps to make this super easy picture ornament. These picture ornaments are such winners, right? I mean, they've been winners for, people have probably been doing this for 200 years. And you can just see here, you just get anything. And the thing I found on a big sale was birdhouses. So you just paint it white, spray paint it white. Then you can have your child finger paint, or maybe put some glitter, if you're sure that it won't fall off. And the next step is I just put a hook in it and a bow, and I didn't actually get around to putting a picture in that in the end. So this is something that, they painted it. They can feel like, I really painted it. This is great. I did a similar thing with the Swedish horse. This is a big thing for people with Swedish heritage. And I got these off Etsy. They have everything now that, there's 3D printers and special saws. And so it just got the Swedish horse cut out, spray painted them, and then he got to paint it. And you can see that, I think you can see from these videos, that it's very fun, but also gives them such a feeling of grown-up pride to be painting something that's not just on the paper. It's nice to put down some, wax paper or some parchment paper to just make it a little more worry-free for you too. But you can see here that I'm giving him a very small brush because I don't want it to just turn into a big mess. I wanted to have some sense of, him in there and all his little adorable brushworks. And so I'm giving him one color at a time. I'm wiping it off, and then I'm giving him the brush again. And this is also good if you use paint that's not, super washable too. But, it's super fun. It's easy. It's done. I couldn't decide in the end what ribbons I wanted to put on this. I ended up ordering some hearts and flowers and scrolls, Swedish looking ribbon that I might put on in the end. But it looks great on the tree. They've made it. Your toddler can give it to somebody else. It's just so easy. So of course, Christmas trees. I don't want to be sounding like, I have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. But one thing to think about is just a tabletop tree. When you have a toddler and you don't want it to turn into the no-no tree, unless you have somewhere that you can, you've got baby gates that their child doesn't sit there and point the whole day and want to see it, or shut the door. Sometimes a tabletop tree is very nice. They can still see it. They can enjoy the lights, but they're not going to touch it. And you can put presents under there or not. I think sometimes putting presents out early is hard for toddlers, but everybody's different what they're going to want to do. But so the thing is, whether it's a tabletop tree or there's a big tree, having some trees in a toddler's life that are his or her trees are something that just makes their Christmas shine. Okay, it's not the no tree, right? It's I have something that I can do. So there's a lot of things that are just so adorable. And last Christmas I, for example, bought a felt tree, but it was this three-dimensional felt tree. It had these little felt ornaments that even as a baby he could like put the felt ornament next to it and it would stay. This year he's just not interested in that at all, so I didn't put that very adorable Etsy tree up. But other kids might still enjoy something like that. But for him, he's at an age where he wants things a little more robust. And so this is a step to Christmas tree, made in USA, yay. And you can see that it's just very basic, but it's super sturdy. And the idea is basically that you take these Christmas balls, they're in indentations around the bottom. It also comes with a very average train, but the balls are great. They're very sturdy, even if they throw them around forever. I do happen to know. They don't break. They're very great. So they take them off and then they get to decorate the tree themselves because there's these little ledges. And while that in itself, could be something that your child will love forever, one thing I find about this tree that just makes it, in my opinion, just such a bargain, is it's very versatile. That's not all it does. So the star at the top can come off, it can come on, you can spin the star around, which is very exciting. And the tree is so sturdy on that base that they can push it around, which of course is great, right? It's great when you're starting to walk. It's great when you're just, you want to feel that as a young toddler, that you can move this big item around. There's also, some thinking skills going on here with trying to pick it up and get it over the baby gate. But the other thing about it that keeps it very fresh for him is he figured out on his own this idea that you could put other things in there besides the balls. So one time he put gourds in there. One time he put put his shoes in there, puts cars in there. He's decorated it with little animals. And so this really keeps it going. He seems to just very much enjoy this whole experience of this tree. The other thing I was going to talk about is the make your own Christmas tree. And so again, this is very sturdy. This is built for a toddler to be able to take around everywhere, bang around, totally indestructible. So you just start with a large square block of wood, and big enough that it can hold things down, but not big enough to actually hurt them too much if they're going to drop it on their foot. And what happens is you just take that big piece and drill a hole. You have to drill it pretty deep, think of like a vase, so that a branch can go in there easily. So this wood block tree is definitely his favorite. So what can happen with that wood block tree is you can put all different kinds of branches in it. Just like you're out for a walk, you find a branch. If the branch is too thick, you can kind of whittle it down with a serrated knife so that it can fit in there. Just make sure it's not too sharp. But a lot of times we find branches that just fit in that hole easily themselves. And so I can use it to decorate his center table, but I can also use it to just let him take down off of the center table, smell it, take it around, whether it's to sort of bang it on the ground or sit and watch TV with it. He'll take it to make part of playing with animals or playing with cards. He himself really enjoys being the person that changes out the one tree to the other tree. Indestructible. He just loves it. So I would say that is probably his favorite idea of a tree right now at this particular point. This tree that he can just do anything he wants to. And the thing is in this case, even if a branch breaks, you just get another branch, right? Get another evergreen branch. And using those different branches, again, whether it's to decorate for, make your center table look a little more festive, or if it's, a standalone thing, changing the different branch, changing the smell of it, looking at the textures of the different kind of needles up close there, is not only is it joyful for him, but it keeps him from wanting to, mess with the tree that's more off limits. So Renee, what do you think about all of this?
These are such great ideas to do with your toddler. You're building these brain skills, you're building these memories, you're starting traditions that can continue through the years. I love all of the ideas about the lights. Who doesn't love lights? And at Christmas, the lights are so special. It's something different. They're mesmerizing. They are going to draw your toddler in, and it's going to be something special that they don't usually get to do. And they're going to have that immediate satisfaction of turning them on, turning them off, rearranging them, all those great things. And of course, I shouldn't have to remind any parent of a toddler, when you've got those lights out, take some pictures too, because it's so much fun. And your ornament ideas, I am going to reinforce everything you said. It's wonderful making these crafts and these Christmas crafts and ornaments with your children. But they do start to crumble and disintegrate after a few years. The wood ornaments and other options are fabulous. I remember when my children were young and they took a class with you, Helen, and they made Christmas ornaments out of wood, and they made a nativity out of wood. And those wood blocks, they stand up to time, and we love to pull those out and look at them and remember when they were little and made those. And those are going to last a long time, so they'll have those memories and those thoughts of what they did when they were younger, and you pull them out, and it's just so amazing years later. So if you can do and make those ornaments and special Christmas things out of durable materials that are going to hold up, that's an activity that's going to continue to pay off every year when you unpack your Christmas supplies and crafts. And I love your idea about the tree and the wooden tree and making that something that your toddler can enjoy and can participate in. And so it's not the no-no tree. I love the whole story about the no-no tree, because how often do we say that? No, don't touch, no. So having something that your toddler can get their hands on, be part of, so Christmas doesn't seem like it's this time where everything is roped off, fenced off, not toddler friendly. These are great ideas and great activities to keep your child engaged, to build fun leading up to the holidays, to make those brain connections. I love the idea about planting the bulbs. What a great tradition that you can start so young, and they can plant these bulbs every year and give them away to grandparents and aunts and uncles and friendly neighbors as gifts. Just fantastic. All of these ideas are fantastic, and I am going to just point blank tell all of you who have toddlers, you're going to be so happy you did all of these things in 5, 10, 15 years, because they're not only making your children into little people that appreciate and love the holidays, but they show your children that this is family time. We are all participating, and to shift your gears from your usual toddler activities to incorporate these Christmas activities is a really special time.
Renee, thank you. I'm so glad you still have those wooden nativities. I love those. And actually, I have pictures of those too, even though toddlers are really a little bit young for it. Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up, Renee. I hope I've talked about this enough, because you want this to be the most wonderful time of the year, right? You want it to seem different. And so going into the, it's kind of a segue into our next topic, which is centers, Christmas centers, and nativities. If you watched Renee and I's other videos about toddlers, you know that I love the idea of a center table. But I want this center table, this thing that's going to change a couple times a day, that the toddler is going to expect to go there and interesting things will happen. I mean, this is where great things happen, and bonding happens, and fun happens, and learning happens. But so for the Christmas spirit. Again, I might use that tree, his special tree. This first video is of a little Santa, or picture and video is of a little Santa station. And over here to the side, I've got a little calendar that just is going to tell the number of it, that it is in December, and the number of items. So maybe it has a Christmas theme, maybe it doesn't, but just to, part of the Advent season, maybe you want to start just counting the days of the month. Maybe you don't, that's up to you. But the kind of pretend Santa station, even if you hate the idea of Santa, I think it's part of the cultural story. So playing with it and acting it out can just be a really fun thing. But also, it can be kind of a rewarding thing, because there are a number of toddlers who are pretty afraid of the idea of Santa, whether they've seen Santa in a mall or they've seen a video of Santa. So having their own little set may be something that helps them kind of work through their ideas about what is Santa, what does Santa do. Another thing is just to think of things that are pieces of the season that your child can interact with. And it could be something pretty simple, but it just gives it an extra fun spin. So you can see here these pine cones, and disclaimer, I bought that big pine cone. Obviously in the Northeast, those giant pine cones don't grow, but I'm using this for small, medium, and large. This was the idea of the day. We did it in a variety of different ways with things that have sort of to do with Christmas. And so just taking the pine cone, he loved this. You can kind of turn into the moment of, here's a closed pine cone that the seeds are still in. Here's an open pine cone where you can see the seeds are possibly left. How interesting is it that that pine cone is so sturdy? And you can see that he can use a spoon to kind of make a little musical sound with the pine cone, or even eventually he's going to find a way to get just a piece of the pine cone off. And it's delightful for him to just show it. And comparing those different sizes and thinking of the idea that this is big, this is small, this is medium, with whatever you decide to do regarding the actual feeling of the season, giving your child that spirit of the season with the kind of a different spin on it. Another thing is, even though, it's becoming winter, there's still interesting things from the outside that you might consider bringing in, whether it's a piece of evergreen, a little piece of boxwood in here. There's some interesting seed pods that he can look at. There can be, part of a center, and I think it's fine if he smashes up the pot and looks inside to see, what's in there. So just kind of pieces of the season too. If you have snow yet, you might bring in some snow and think of different ways that you can explore the snow. You could use cranberries. You could do a water table and put cinnamon sticks in there, whatever it is, just pieces of things that are different, to have this idea of this season, this is some great things that are happening here. Just for fun, you can see that he's in his high chair and it looks like water. He's played this game before, so he's watching, he's thinking, and you'll hear him giggle, but what it is I'm putting different things in the water. So in this particular time, with some sparkling water cranberry juice. And so he's waiting to try to figure out, what is this taste? Is this the time that it's water? Or is this a time that you put something else in there? Is there going to be the taste of lemon in there? Is there going to be whatever is in there that's, that's enjoyable to taste? And you can hear him giggling. He loves this game of tasting the different things that might be in clear water. And again, it's that idea that unexpected things are happening, right? The world is not always exactly how you might think it could be. And so sometimes, when it's Christmas, I'm going to have a lot of different things out here. You might even have some fake present boxes that you open up and see what's inside of it. But you can see, on this particular display, he's got the lights. He's working with the lights. He's got a book about Santa Claus. Now he's on the number 3, and there's 3 babies over there, and he's doing something a little different with Santa than he was in the earlier video. Now, if it's Christmas themed, you might have things that kind of move together like that, and there's several things on it. But my particular preference is when I'm switching into nativity centers, I don't put other things out there because for me particularly, and I want it to seem intentional. I want it to seem special and I want it to seem different. You might disagree, but this is just how I like to do it. And so, I feel like a nativity is a great way to learn about the Christmas story. But when I'm putting that out there, I'm also doing it in a way that still it seems holy. Without me actually saying it, it's going to be clear to him that I'm like, oh, you decided to throw Santa and his reindeer on the floor. Yeah, it's not a problem. We'll pick it up. But when I'm putting out that nativity, I'm putting it out in a way that I'm making it really clear to him that, we don't throw these. These are different. These are special. And I'm telling him the story. I'm doing it in a way that it's a very different thing. And I'm not putting lights out. I'm not mixing it in with Santa or reindeer. This is just how I like to do it. You might feel, differently about it. But I want him to have this kind of respect. And you can kind of see in the way he's playing with these pieces that he's picked up that. Like he's picked up that this is how you're going to do it. So even as a 1-year-old, he can figure out how this is going to be, how this is going to go. In this particular video, I think that you might be able to see the idea that playing with these nativities and telling the story is a way to really get the story. So he, at several points in this video, is saying bye-bye. He says bye-bye baby, because he does have the idea that Mary and Joseph went on a trip. They had to go bye-bye, and eventually baby Jesus is going to be born, and he's going to go bye-bye to Egypt. So even as a very little child, you can pick up pieces of the story. You can pick up, the beginning of what this might be. So that's the big thing that I want to happen with the nativities. But there's other things that can happen with nativities, and maybe you may not agree with me, but this is just one thing I like to think. I like to think of nativities as my child's sort of entry into the world of art. And so I have a number of nativity sets, and so I can do this pretty easily. But even if you don't, you can still do this with different places you go that your child would see nativities. So whether you're a New Yorker and you're going to go to the Met someday and see that that center room full of exquisite nativities, or you have something at church, or you drive by on the street and you see an outdoor nativity scene, there's lots of chances to point out the differences even to a small child. And so it can be as basic as in this picture, you can see there's a flat sort of like puzzle piece nativity right next to a 3-dimensional carved nativity. To talk about here's, this is flat, but look, this is 3-dimensional, this is carved. It could be that you're going to take the nativity and say this is a metal nativity. This is a wooden nativity. Sometimes it might be possible to point out, this is extremely realistic nativity versus this is pretty representational. So this is ways that many people will find that their children can start to get a feeling for art and for what's beautiful and what's special. So I don't know, I just feel like that's a very fun thing to do. I'm just going to show really quickly a picture. Probably toddlers or two aren't going to be able to do this by themselves, but for older, if you have an older child too, this is a picture of these wood blocks that you just turn over. They stand up, and you pick any kind of felt you want, and cut out your nativity scene, put on as many sequins as you want. And over the years, I have so many of these from kids, making them a couple times a year. Some toddlers might want to play with these, and I actually got them out for my little sweetie, but he just really wanted to pull off the sequins, so that did not last very long. But they are very sturdy. They're very fun for children. So anyway, I hope that you might consider a nativity if that's a part of the Christmas story that you want your children to start to interact with, even at this young toddler age. Another thing that really goes with Christmas is Advent. And I know that some people might feel like, oh, that's not part of my religious tradition. And so, this is just a food for thought, right? You certainly will do what works best for you. But I'm a super fan of Advent wreaths at home. And, an easy way to make it just get the foam wreath and stick whatever you've got, any kind of evergreens you have in your yard in them. And you can do it for so inexpensively. And then pop in some candles. You can also do it. I, for many years now, have just cheated and hired the florist and got them. But you can do it any way that you want. But toddlers, even toddlers can put in the flowers. Like if they're pre-cut flowers or they're pre-cut pieces, you can they can stick into the wreath and feel like they're part of it in some way. Another thing that you can do, if you want to have the feeling that your child made the wreath completely on their own, is just take a plate, as you see here. These are some of those candles that he was making earlier. They're put on top of yogurt and baby jar containers, and one of them is I already had, and I'm really trying not to go out to the store, so I just did it with what I had available. But you can see that they on their own can just place those there, just like that tray earlier. And in this little vignette here, as you can see, that just sitting down for a pizza lunch at Christmas can become that special Advent feeling when you put on a tablecloth and you light the candle, and it's Advent. I just feel like that is just such a beautiful part of marking time. And one of the things I love about it is not the idea that it's just that that it's the Advent season, right? It's not just Christmas Day. Like each week we on Sunday you go to the next candle and it becomes a different thing. So even if you didn't want to follow what people in different religious traditions think of as happening with each Sunday, I think you might still really enjoy it just with the idea of thinking of Christmas, thinking of the coming of Jesus' birth. But maybe not. This is just something that I really have loved over the years. And it's interesting because it's something that my children have told me that they plan to do too. So I always feel like that it's really great. So another thing that a lot of people are going to do is to pick some kind of thing that you buy at the store, and your child gets a piece of candy a day to mark the time, or a toy a day. I'm going to say that if you have only a toddler, you might want to avoid this. It's something that's very hard as a toddler to know after the first couple of days when you got the feeling that there's that box and there's candy in there, that what's going on? I'm only getting one a day, or there's a bunch of toys that things I'm only going to get one a day. I have just found this to be not super successful. That didn't stop me from trying it this year, and again thinking, why did I try this again? But you might feel differently. I think that's a splendid thing to do when kids start to be in preschool or that. It's just delightful to do at that age. But this younger age is pretty tough on them, I think. And again, you don't want it to be the no must, right? Like, no, you can't take another toy out of there. You can't take another piece of the Advent out. One thing that I think you might like to do, maybe, is you can see here that I just made a very simple chart of counting down to Christmas. And each day, like he cannot, he doesn't have the coordination as a 1-year-old to just make an X there. But, you do that thing where you just kind of hold your hand in your hand, and you kind of together you're making an X to X off each day to talk about, how many sleeps is that. I think that is pretty age appropriate, but it's up to you. You'll have to figure out your way that you want to do it to mark the time before it's coming. So it wouldn't be Christmas probably without Christmas music. And I want to put a plug in for something you might or may not have thought about. And that's that YouTube is so great for music for toddlers. So every day we have had YouTube playing music. And the thing that's great about it is when he's still trying to imagine how things happen, you can, look up from playing and you can look over there and you can see like, whoa, those people are doing Christmas chants, or look at that, that's the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Or he was very intrigued by South Korea. They have these giant mega churches and these choirs that seem to be made of 1,000 people. The next day you might be listening, or all in the same day, a great gospel church group. So the thing is that something about it is really beautiful for them when they're still learning, like, oh, that was a saxophone. Look, that's a person playing a saxophone. Or, wow, look at those bells chiming. Look at those 20 people chiming bells. They can kind of see it too. Anyway, it's just something that we've really enjoyed and, wasn't possible before all of this technology happened. You may or may not notice that I love to think about music. And so you're putting out some Christmas themed centers with bells and other kinds of instruments can really add to the joy of the season. But so kept thinking of different things that make noises and thinking of all those chimes. I wanted him to have the experience of that too. And so just taking one of these plastic containers, I love these M-Design plastic containers, made in the USA, and just kind of shaking it, whether you're shaking it or pounding it or putting a few of them together, that kind of clattering, clanking sound of the spoons is quite intriguing. And there's all different variations depending on how you shake it or how you move it to making those sounds. That sort of made me think almost of a choir, right? There's so many different pieces making sounds in there. Another thing that I did is I got this traffic cone out for him. And of course, object permanence is such an exciting thing when you're young. But, of course, you put it down there, you don't see it for a while. It seems like maybe it's gone. And then clang, it hits the other spoons down there. That was a big thrill. That lasted for a long time. I just enjoyed that very much. And again, while the Christmas music was playing on YouTube, I got some boxes out and, placing them different ways so that that box flap can move back and forth and make a sound, whether it was, got him out a bunch of different kitchen tools to try to make sounds along with, background singing, or just hitting a hammer, a toy hammer. All these different ways that they're making their joyful noise too. It just adds to the feeling of the season. All these things going on together, whether you're clattering your spoons and then going over and looking at your special bubbling Christmas light and then going over to Christmas centers, it's clear that this is a different season, right? There's all kinds of, whether they're listening to some jazz at that moment or some 1950s Christmas music, it just adds to that feeling of what you're trying to say about this month. Renee, what do you think?
Again, Helen, terrific ideas. We were talking about lights before and how closely does Christmas go together with lights? Well, how closely does Christmas go together with music? And when you're coming up to the Christmas season, I know in our home, ever since our children were little toddlers, music is right at the center. Whether it's special concerts that you can watch or listen to, special pieces that you only listen to around that time of the year, getting those instruments out, especially with the bells and Christmas go together. These are fantastic ideas for your toddler. And music is so key to building that brain development and developing that lifelong love and appreciation for music. And there are so many different genres of music at Christmas. I will tell you that is something that has stuck with my children throughout the years. And we started that when they were toddlers with different instruments, different music. I think it brings all the joy into Christmas. When you're thinking of the festivities and the lights and you add that music, that's really something special for your toddler. What toddler doesn't like to dance? What toddler doesn't like to make noises with little instruments that you're using? Great ideas. And I hope that you're all going to try to incorporate those into your Christmas time with your toddlers.
Thanks, Renee. Thanks so much. You always say just the right thing. And I wish that, I kind of wish that I would have talked more as each thing went along, that I'm really trying to combine here the joy of Christmas with brain, activities that are also going to help your child's brain develop, and also activities hopefully that help their life of faith to start with this idea that this is a joyful season and this is the beginning, this big beginning with the birth of Jesus. The last thing we just wanted to we're doing another video on starting a Christmas library, like how important it is to have that. But I just wanted to show you a couple pictures of this idea of having Christmas books out at this time. So you can see that, you know, once a day about the center might change and you put out some toddler Christmas books, or you might have, you know, a special sort of preschool thing where they can go in and pull out a book and sit down and listen to it. There's so many books about Christmas that are just beautiful, just add to the season. But so it's a whole other video about that. We're just leaving it as sort of like a footnote here. Thank you for listening. I hope that this gave you some ideas. I really wanted to share what has given my family so much peace and love and joy and excitement. You know, to have this time that we can all celebrate together is, you know, a wonderful thing as an adult. But why not start it when your child's young, as a toddler, giving them this feeling that this isn't just the same old thing. This is a different month of the year, full of this splendid sparklingness of life. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please consider giving us a thumbs up or subscribing, and have a very Merry Christmas. Bye-bye. See you soon.